It is BlizzCon 2015. Travis here with GameSpot, and I am joined by Matt Cooper and Hugh Shelton to talk about Heroes of the Storm. You guys want to tell me what you do at Blizzard?
Sure. So I'm Matthew Cooper. I am the lead live designer. So my main focus is on balance for Heroes of the Storm. So every time there's a new patch, new heroes, old heroes,
Yeah.
all those patch changes.
And I'm Hugh Shelton. I'm the lead hero designer, so I'm part of the team that helps pick out what heroes are coming into the game, designing their abilities, what they're going to do, what sets them apart from the other heroes in the Nexus.
Awesome. Well, I think one of the things that really I got fascinated by in the intro was the Cho'Gall announcement. You guys, I feel like, have done a very good job of people who have played games similar to Heroes. I think will be continuously or have been continuously surprised by how you guys kind of just turn things on their head. And I think maybe this is the biggest jump that I've seen so far. Was there ever a moment in time where you guys were sort of saying like, no, this isn't going to work out, or like, because I'm sure there was so much of an iterative process on creating this hero.
Definitely. I mean, when we're starting off making a hero like this, there are numerous challenges that we have to figure out how we're going to overcome them before we can really commit to making that hero. And Cho'Gall has probably been the largest undertaking when it comes to having to have all these systems outside of the game support the hero as well as the stuff inside the game.
So we should say for people who haven't caught the announcement yet that it's actually a hero that is controlled by two players in the game, and one player I saw from the panel, one player controls movement, and then they both have sort of a set of abilities. Maybe you can sort of expand on how that works.
Yeah, sure. So there's two characters basically. You have Cho and you have Gall. Cho is the legs, and he controls the basic attacks of the character. And he's sort of this warrior. He's like the beefy warrior that can get in there and he's going to move you around. Whereas Gall is more of a ranged assassin, but he's attached to Cho. And so he has some really low cooldown abilities, which means he's going to be using them really frequently to keep dishing out damage. And it's also pretty unique because you have this like sort of ranged assassin that can now be in the middle of the enemy team being carried by Cho.
Okay. Now, Matt, my immediate reaction was that this must be like the worst thing to balance ever, because you're balancing around the fact that like this is now replacing like a second character because you're only going to have 4 heroes on the map. What do you view as like the major challenges? Is it just come down to like a numbers game, or on the balance side, like what challenges have you guys faced and do you anticipate facing?
Yeah, he's definitely a challenge for us to balance. Usually when we add a new hero, we have a bit of a template of like, if we're doing Lunara, okay, she's a ranged assassin, so we'll look at Rain or we'll look at Vala and kind of figure out, where her stats should be. Cho'Gall is very different. He's take up 2 player slots, so essentially he is probably our most powerful character. Well, he's definitely our most powerful character, but he has more health than any warrior does. Combined, they do way more damage than anyone else, so that's definitely a challenge for us. Also balancing around the fact that you brought up of one less character on the battleground, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do we compensate for that? It's kind of the opposite of the Lost Vikings, who only send maybe 1/3 of their hero to go capture a watchtower. Cho'Gall's essentially sending 40% of your team to go capture
Right.
a watchtower. So we've kind of added a little bit more power into him for that, but I think as soon as it goes live and we get millions of players playing, we're going to learn a lot more.
Now, I tend to focus more on the esports side of things. Are there any specific challenges or things that you find or are concerned about, even from the fact that obviously this will be a character that's allowed to be to be played competitively in tournaments and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think if the balance is good, if the balance holds up across like ranked play and stuff, then I think he'll probably do fine in esports. There is the characters kind of have some abilities that synergize with each other. So if you're very coordinated, it's going to be more powerful. So I'm not sure we've seen internally the most coordinated a Cho'Gall team can be.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll see that still.
Now, Hugh, it's very funny to me because for the past year or so, you guys have been talking about Archon mode and StarCraft. Was there any element of that played a role in having like a 2-in-1 person with Cho'Gall?
So we are in the same building as the StarCraft team, so it would be silly of me to say that wouldn't have had some sort of impact on us. But coming up with 2 characters, well, 2 heroes, one hero being controlled by 2
Yeah.
players, I'll figure that out. as it's another way of breaking the rules of the genre.
Yeah.
And we've had meetings where we talk about what ways can we break the game, and this is the way that we decided to break the game this time.
Yeah. It does seem like you guys are kind of have this accept no constraints mentality. Are there any rules that you guys have, or anything that you aren't willing to do? Like, are we going to see, a couple years down the road, like, yes, all 5 people on a team can lock into one character, and this is just like he just runs around. I mean, at some point in time, you have to say like, all right, that's just too much.
I think that ends up coming down to what the experience is being offered for the players in the game. Like if we're adding characters that are ruining the experience for all the other players, then that's where we're going to draw a line. That's when we're not going to add that sort of mechanic. But as long as it's still something that's fun for the both teams, then we'll keep adding pretty ridiculous things.
Now, you also announced 2 additional heroes here. Maybe you want to go into sort of what those heroes are and what they do?
Sure. So Lunara is a fragile ranged assassin who is faster than all of our other characters baseline, and she also can wear down enemies with her trait, which applies a damage over time effect. She's going to bring a little bit of new things into the game in terms of how much poke she is able to put out there. We don't have a lot of heroes that are able to poke at that long range, and you might be able to build team comps around her and some other similar characters. And then Greymane is set up to be a shapeshifter. He has his human form and his Worgen form. In human form, he's all about poking down enemies again, but he just wears them down at that range. And then he is able to go in as a Worgen, and he gets more damage from his basic attacks, but he's in a more vulnerable state, and that's when he can finish people off.
Yeah. Now, one of the other announcements that you guys made was this kind of arena thing, a new mode. What I assume whenever you guys talk about it, and also based on the early, tease that we saw during the opening ceremonies, that it's just kind of a big brawl of 5-on-5. Is that like a pretty good explanation of what it is?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean it's essentially a best of 3. So 2 teams of 5 will play a best of 3, and in each game you're going to choose a hero. You're going to be randomly assigned 3 characters, and you're going to choose which one you want to play. And then you go into a match. The match is going to be about 4 minutes long, and then you'll play another one. And if it's tied 1-1, then you'll play the third game after that. There's no laning. You start at level 10. You don't gain experience, so you get to choose your heroic ability. There can be 3 Illidan's on a team. There could be 5 Illidan's on a team. So it's definitely kind of a crazy, different way to experience all the characters.
Now, it was interesting to me because whenever they were talking about it, it was kind of mentioned like there was some randomness in characters popping in, or is it literally just like everyone gets to pick whatever they want? How does the hero selection go into each of the matches?
So our Battleground team has kind of determined some team compositions that will work. Like I don't think we offer 5 supports because the match might not really progress that much. And then from there we mirror the team comps on each team. So you might get 2 warriors, 2 assassins, and a support, and the other team also get that.
Yeah.
And so if I'm offered the warrior role, I'll maybe get Diablo, ETC, and Stitches, and I get to choose which one I want to play. And someone on the other team is also choosing from those.
Now, is this going to be like sort of a separate thing that you access instead of picking? Whenever you go into a Heroes game, obviously you play and then it sort of randomizes a map or picks a map for you to play on. Is this going to be contained in like a separate section, or are you going to be able to randomly end up on these arena maps as well?
This will definitely be a different play mode. You won't be hopping into quick match and maybe you get Dragon Shower, maybe you get Arena, right? Like, so it is a different mode, but I'm not sure we've figured out exactly what that means yet.
Sure. And then also, again, kind of going back to the esports side, what does Arena mean for esports? Is there going to be anything like that, or is this like a completely separate thing from, what a lot of the Heroes of the Storm tournaments will be on?
I'm not sure we know what Arena means to esports yet. Like, we definitely didn't build this mode with the intention of it being, like a BlizzCon tournament or anything like that. It's just supposed to be a really fun mode, a different way to think about your characters and different way to play your characters. But at the same time, it wouldn't surprise me if, the esports scene starts to pick this up, maybe for some fun tournaments, maybe for some more serious tournaments. Like, we're pretty excited to see when that happens.
Was Arena inspired by WoW Arenas?
You know what? I'm not sure if it was inspired by WoW Arenas. I don't know. I know, like, the inspiration behind it was definitely just get in, battle. You're not going to soak lanes. You're
Yeah.
not going to, level up a 20-minute match. Like, it's just get in and brawl.
I would say that the way that we have you choose one of your 3 random heroes is definitely similar to Hearthstone Arena, where
Yeah.
you are choosing from 3 different cards.
Okay. So maybe even more inspired by Hearthstone Arena than WoW Arena.
It actually it definitely has similar elements from both of them, right? Because you are just in this one area fighting the other team, and you also have the way that you choose your heroes.
How long has Arena been on the roadmap for you guys? Was this a sort of like a fun side project, or is this something that you guys have kind of had in the back of your mind since the start?
This is something that has been worked on for a decent amount of time now, and we just had a lot of positive reaction once we started playtesting this mode. We have full team playtests every week, a couple of them every week, where the whole Here's the Storm development team can play, and they can send in their feedback about it. The amount of positive feedback that we were getting from testing this mode was pretty unparalleled compared to any other new hero, any other new map. People are just having a lot of fun with it.
So based on the internal reaction, do you have any ideas on maybe how is there even a chance that like Arena could overtake like the traditional mode of playing Heroes of the Storm down the road?
I mean, there's still a lot to find out about what's going to happen, because depending on how we present it to players, how people are going to enter this mode, and what else is going to be part of Arena, there's still a lot of questions to answer.
Well, we are kind of wrapping up. I do want to ask you, Matt, really quickly, maybe you can just give me an idea of how comfortable you guys are with the balance on the competitive side right now. And I know obviously we're going to see some high-level competitive play here at BlizzCon that might inform your feelings on that, but just sort of in general, how satisfied are you guys on the balance team?
Obviously, balance is an iterative process. Like, we're going to continue making changes for a very long time. But I think right now we feel like the game is in a really good spot balance-wise. I think it was one of our last major patches. We made a bunch of changes to some of our warriors. Prior to that, we were mostly seeing Leoric and Johanna, which we weren't too happy about, obviously.
Right.
But now we're seeing, Muradins and some ETC and some Diablo. So we're seeing quite a bit of different hero play. And along with that patch, we also did changes to Tassadar and Tehran. So now we're seeing a lot of different support play also. So overall, I think we're in a really good spot. There's still a couple of heroes we have to work on. Like, we don't see a lot of Gazlo play still. But that's something we're going to keep working on.
Do you feel like you have to have everything be very, like everything needs to be viable at any given point in time at high levels, or do you think that there's always going to be kind of a churn of, some heroes will fall and some will rise?
I think there's probably always going to be some sort of churn at high level play of like, these are considered the best 6 assassins or whatever that number is. For us, we'd like it to be as many characters as possible. I think that's the most fun experience to watch if, everything's viable. And maybe you only see Gazlo like 1 in 10 games, but if you do see him 1 in 10, that's a really cool special moment. I think that's kind of where like Asmodan is at right now. You don't see Asmodan very often, but he definitely does have like a role on the team.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you guys so much for sitting down with me. I really appreciate it. And it's always fun to get a glimpse at what's in store for Heroes of the Storm. I'm really excited about playing Cho'Gall and Arena, especially because those seem like just completely new ways to play the game. So thanks so much. For everyone else, you can check out the rest of our BlizzCon 2015 coverage at GameSpot.com.